the 1970s. A time of platform shoes, lava lamps, and music that shook the world. This wasn't just background noise. This was music that screamed for your attention, that wormed its way into your soul, that made you want to dance, to shout, to change the world. Forget those crooners from the past. The 70s were different. Rock was king, but it was a kingdom with many castles. Disco, funk, punk rock, they all staked their claim, each one louder and prouder than the last. It was a decade when music wasn't just something you listened to, it was something you lived and breathed. It was the soundtrack to a generation finding its voice, its freedom, and its groove. So buckle up, we're about to dive into the music scene of the 1970s, a time when the airwaves crackled with raw energy and innovation. Rock music in the 70s, it was larger than life, fueled by guitar riffs that could melt steel and drum solos that felt like a heartbeat of the gods. Leading the charge was Led Zeppelin, four lads from England who redefined rock stardom. These guys weren't just musicians, they were mythical beings. Robert Plant, with his golden mane and soaring vocals, could summon spirits with a single note. Jimmy Page, the guitar wizard, could make his instruments sing, scream, and weep. John Paul Jones held down the low end with the strength of Atlas, and John Bonham, the drumming demon, pounded out rhythms that could level mountains. Led Zeppelin didn't just sell records, they sold them by the truckload. Their fourth album, the one with Stairway to Heaven, became a sacred text for rock fans everywhere. It was a time when rock was raw, powerful, and utterly captivating. While Zeppelin was busy rocking the stadiums, something else was brewing in the clubs. The 1970s were a time of musical revolution, and while rock and roll was dominating the airwaves, another genre was quietly taking over the dance floors. This was the era of disco, a genre that would soon explode in popularity and become synonymous with the decade itself. Disco! It was the music that made you want to put on your dancing shoes, even if those shoes were platform heels that added a foot to your height. The pulsating beats, the shimmering lights, and the infectious rhythms created an atmosphere that was impossible to resist. Clubs were packed with people eager to dance the night away, lost in the euphoria of the music. And leading the charge were the Bee Gees, three brothers from Australia with voices smoother than silk, and songs catchier than a cold in winter. Barry, Robin, and Maurice Gibb had a unique sound that set them apart from other artists of the time. Their harmonies were tight, their melodies unforgettable, and their stage presence electrifying. They weren't just performers, they were icons. The Bee Gees, with their high-pitched harmonies and infectious beats, became the undisputed kings of the disco ball. Their music was the heartbeat of the disco era, providing the soundtrack to countless nights of dancing and celebration. Songs like Stayin' Alive, Night Fever, and More Than a Woman became anthems, not just for the disco movement, but for an entire generation. Stayin' Alive, How Deep Is Your Love, You Should Be Dancing. These weren't just songs, they were anthems for a generation that embraced the night. Each track was a masterpiece, meticulously crafted to get people moving. The Bee Gees had an uncanny ability to tap into the zeitgeist, creating music that resonated deeply with the spirit of the times. Disco wasn't just about the music, it was about the experience. It was about the lights, the fashion, the energy, and the sense of community. People from all walks of life came together on the dance floor, united by the beat. It was a time when the world seemed a little bit brighter, and the nights a little bit longer. It was about letting loose, losing yourself in the rhythm, and dancing until dawn. The dance floor was a place of freedom, where worries melted away and joy took over. The Bee Gees' music was the perfect accompaniment to this liberation, their songs providing the perfect backdrop to nights filled with laughter, movement, and pure, unadulterated fun. And nobody did it better than the Bee Gees, the soundtrack to countless nights under the glittering disco ball. Their legacy is not just in their music, but in the memories they helped create. For those who lived through the disco era, the Bee Gees will always be the kings of the dance floor, their songs forever etched in the annals of music history. Section 4, Funky Town, James Brown gets everyone moving. But the 70s weren't just about rock and disco. The era was a melting pot of musical innovation, with genres blending and evolving in ways that had never been seen before. Amidst the psychedelic rock and the glittering disco balls, another genre was carving out its own space in the musical landscape. Oh no, there was another groove taking hold, a sound that was raw, sweaty, and impossible to resist: funk. Funk was more than just music, it was a movement, a cultural phenomenon that brought people together on the dance floor. It was the heartbeat of the streets, the pulse of the parties, and the soul of the 70s. And the godfather of funk? None other than the hardest working man in show business, Mr. James Brown. James Brown was a pioneer, a trailblazer who took the raw energy of funk and turned it into a global sensation. His influence was felt far and wide, from the smallest clubs to the biggest arenas. James Brown wasn't just a singer, he was a force of nature. His performances were electric, his presence magnetic. When James Brown took the stage, you couldn't help but be drawn in by his charisma and energy. He was a master of his craft, a performer who gave everything he had every time he stepped into the spotlight. He commanded the stage with an energy that could power a small city, his voice a raw, soulful instrument that could make you feel every word in your bones. His vocal delivery was unmatched, a blend of power and emotion that resonated with audiences around the world. James Brown's voice was an instrument in itself, capable of conveying a wide range of emotions with just a single note. And his feet? Don't even get us started on those feet. James Brown's dance moves were legendary, a whirlwind of motion that left audiences in awe. His footwork was fast, precise, and utterly mesmerizing. Watching James Brown dance was like witnessing a force of nature in action, a display of pure, unbridled talent. They moved faster than a hummingbird's wings, defying gravity and logic with every step. His dance routines were a spectacle, a blend of athleticism and artistry that set the standard for performers everywhere. James Brown's dancing was more than just a part of his act, it was an integral part of his identity as an artist. Get Up, I Feel Like Being a Sex Machine, a song that became an anthem for a generation. It was a call to action, a rallying cry that got people on their feet and moving to the beat. The infectious rhythm and powerful lyrics made it an instant classic, a song that still resonates with audiences today. Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, another iconic track that showcased James Brown's innovative style. This song was a game changer, introducing a new sound that would influence countless artists in the years to come. With its catchy hooks and dynamic arrangement, it was a testament to James Brown's genius as a musician and performer. Get on the Good Foot. A song that was more than just music, it was a command to dance, to let loose, and to feel the groove. James Brown's ability to connect with his audience through his music was unparalleled. Each performance was a shared experience, a moment of pure joy and energy that left a lasting impact on everyone who witnessed it. These songs weren't just invitations to dance, they were commands. James Brown's music had a way of getting under your skin, making you move whether you wanted to or not. His rhythms were infectious, his beats irresistible. When James Brown played, you had no choice but to get up and dance. James Brown didn't just influence music, he revolutionized it, injecting it with a dose of raw funk that would echo through the decades. His impact on the music industry is immeasurable, his legacy enduring. James Brown was more than just a performer. He was a cultural icon, a symbol of the power of music to bring people together and move them in ways they never thought possible. Section 5. Punk's fury, the Ramones crash, the party. By the mid-70s, rock was getting a bit too comfortable, a bit too bloated. The genre that once symbolized rebellion and youthful energy was now filled with elaborate stage setups, long-winded guitar solos, and lyrics that seemed more like philosophical musings than the raw, unfiltered emotions of its early days. The spirit of rock and roll was in danger of being lost in a sea of excess and pretension. Punk rock, a raw and rebellious sound from the underground, was about to shake things up. Emerging from the gritty streets and smoky clubs, punk rock was a reaction to the overproduced and overindulgent rock scene. It was a call back to simplicity, to the raw energy and emotion that had once defined rock music. It was loud, fast, and unapologetically in your face. And leading the charge were four lads from Forest Hills, Queens, the Ramones. With their leather jackets, ripped jeans, and bowl-cut hair, they looked like they had just stepped out of a comic book, but their music was no joke. It was a sonic assault that demanded attention and refused to be ignored. Forget the long guitar solos and the philosophical lyrics. The Ramones were here to strip rock music down to its bare essentials. Their songs were short, sharp, and straight to the point. No frills, no filler, just pure, unadulterated rock and roll. The Ramones kept it short, fast, and loud. Their songs rarely lasted longer than 2.5 minutes, But in that brief span, they packed more energy and attitude than most bands could muster in an entire album. Each track was a burst of adrenaline, a shot of pure punk rock fury. Their songs were like a punch in the face, a blast of pure energy that rarely lasted longer than 2.5 minutes. The Ramones didn't waste time with elaborate intros or extended solos. They got straight to the point, delivering their message with a ferocity that left audiences reeling. They sang about boredom, frustration, and the alienation of urban life, and they did it with a snarl and a sneer. Their lyrics were a reflection of the gritty reality of life in the city, capturing the angst and disillusionment of a generation that felt left behind by the promises of the post-war boom. The Ramones were the ultimate anti-establishment band. They didn't care about fitting in, about playing by the rules, or about pleasing the critics. They were here to make a statement, to challenge the status quo, and to give a voice to the disaffected youth who felt like they had no place in the mainstream. They didn't care about fitting in, about playing by the rules, or about pleasing the critics. The Ramones were all about authenticity, about staying true to themselves and their music. They didn't compromise and they didn't apologize. They played their music their way, and if you didn't like it, that was your problem, not theirs. They just wanted to play their music their way, and they didn't care who liked it. Their passion and dedication to their craft were evident in every performance, every song, and every note. The Ramones crashed the party, and in doing so, they changed the face of rock music forever.